Welcome to Space Tales. Today, we invite you to listen to the story. At the family reunion, I was deliberately seated at the kids' table. Little did I know that the family's VIP guest had just spotted me and went pale as a sheet. In every American family, no matter how modern, there still exist old traditions where sons are favored. The eldest male makes decisions, and women are often undervalued regardless of their capabilities. I was born and raised in such a family where women's voices were rarely heard. Despite how far they might go in society, I, a girl with a spirit of thinking big and taking action, chose a different path. I left the safety of my corporate job and started my own business in a tiny 400-square-foot apartment facing countless doubtful and mocking looks from my own relatives. I wasn't necessarily brave. I simply couldn't live a quiet life in someone's shadow. Through all the struggles, misunderstandings, and conflicts, I gradually found my way back to connecting with my family, especially with my grandfather, whom I once thought didn't understand me, but who turned out to understand me the most. This is a story about a journey, not just an entrepreneurial journey, but a journey of asserting my self-worth within my own family. A journey filled with tears, but also overflowing with love. I'm Sarah, 32 years old, unmarried project manager at a tech company. I quietly repeated my status to myself the way the adults in my family typically saw me. They would never know that just last month I had completed the acquisition of controlling interest in the company and was now the largest shareholder. In the business world, I was a rising star, but in my extended family's eyes, I was still just the spinster aunt who studied too much and missed her chance at marriage and kids. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Sarah, are you here yet? Everyone's arrived?" I took a deep breath, grabbed my car keys and the carefully prepared gifts. Premium wine for Uncle Robert. A luxury silk scarf for Aunt Linda, designer school supplies for all the nieces and nephews. Each gift was chosen carefully, nice enough not to be criticized, but not too expensive to seem like showing off. I texted back, "Almost there, traffic's a bit heavy." Actually, I'd been sitting in the hotel parking lot for half an hour just needing time to mentally prepare. For me, family gatherings had never been occasions to enjoy, but battles requiring full attention. The Grand Marriott Hotel Uncle Robert chose this place this year. As soon as I opened the door, the sound of laughter and the smell of food hit me. The room had 4 large round tables with the main table already full. I saw Uncle Robert sitting prominently in the center, beaming. Next to him was Aunt Linda in a bright red outfit saying something that made all the relatives burst into laughter. "Sarah's here." Mom was the first to notice. She quickly walked over to take the gift bags from my hands. "Why are you so late?" "Your uncle asked about you several times." I looked around for a seat. Traditionally, unmarried women my age would sit at the second table with the married female cousins, but that table was already packed. My cousin Jessica was holding her 2-year-old son and just waved casually at me. "Your seat is over there," Mom said, awkwardly pointing to a small table in the corner. I looked over, my heart sinking. It was the kids' table, clearly smaller than the others. Around it sat 5 young cousins, the oldest barely 12. The table was covered with juice boxes, fruit drinks, and colorful kid-friendly snacks. "Mom, that's the children's table," I whispered, my face burning with embarrassment. Mom's eyes avoided mine. "There are too many people today, not enough seats. Aunt Linda said since you don't have kids, you could sit there and watch the little ones." I glanced at the main table where my cousin Mike, fresh out of college, sat comfortably chatting and laughing with Uncle Robert. He wasn't even dressed properly, just a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans, yet he was at the head table. "Sarah, please, just bear with it." Mom grabbed my hand, almost pleading. "Aunt Linda specifically requested it. There's an important guest today, we can't break protocol." I bit my lip until I tasted blood. This was the rule in this house. Men always above women. Married above unmarried. Those with children were valued even more. At 32, unmarried and childless, I ranked below even a 12-year-old boy in the Johnson family's unspoken hierarchy. I forced a smile and walked toward the humiliating little table with my back straight. "Aunt Sarah," 7-year-old Emma called out excitedly. "Come sit with us kids." "Yes, I'm sitting with you guys today." I pulled out a chair, forcing a smile. The children were oblivious to the humiliation in this seating arrangement. Loud laughter echoed from the main table. I could clearly hear Uncle Robert's voice. "Our Mike just joined the county council. It's just an entry-level position, but his supervisor thinks highly of him. Last week, he even accompanied the department head to a city meeting." I peeled shrimp for little Emma while trying not to listen. My cousin studied mediocrely, got his government job through connections, and was now the family's pride. Meanwhile, I graduated, top of my class, started my own business with nothing, and now controlled an entire company, yet I was a topic of pity because I hadn't found a husband. "Aunt Sarah, are you sad?" Emma looked up and asked. I paused. "No, I'm happy." "Then why did you squish the shrimp completely flat?" She pointed at my hand. I looked down at the mangled shrimp in my palm, juice dripping between my fingers. "I was just distracted." I fumbled for napkins to clean my hands, feeling like I couldn't breathe with the weight on my chest. Just then, the door burst open. Uncle Robert immediately stood up, beaming. "Oh, Director Thompson is here." "Everyone, let's welcome Director Thompson, my dear friend and CEO of Phoenix Construction Group, who's specially joining us today." The entire room stood and applauded. I looked up to see a middle-aged man in a gray suit enter, a professional smile on his lips. His eyes swept across the kids' table and suddenly stopped frozen. His smile vanished, replaced by shock and disbelief. He quickly walked toward me, bypassing all the surprised stares, extending his hand. "Director Sarah, what are you doing here?" The room fell completely silent. Mr. Thompson's hand hung in the air while my mind went blank, the air conditioning the only sound remaining. "Mr. Thompson, you must be mistaken." My uncle laughed awkwardly. "This is my niece Sarah, not some director." Mr. Thompson looked even more bewildered. He turned to my uncle, then back to me. "Mr. Johnson, this is indeed Sarah Chen, CEO of StarTech Corporation. I just signed a strategic partnership with her company last month." I felt all the blood rush to my face, gripping my napkin tightly. StarTech, my baby, that I'd quietly built over 5 years, an achievement that even my parents knew nothing about. 3 years ago, my college friend David and I founded this company. Last month, we completed a reverse acquisition of my former employer's company. StarTech, the future of technology. StarTech Corporation. My cousin Jessica's voice rang out sharply from the second table. "The company that advertises smart homes on TV." Director Thompson immediately nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly, StarTech is now the leading smart technology company. The smart home system developed by Director Sarah has captured 15% of the Eastern region's market share. I had no idea she was Mr. Johnson's niece. What a small world." I slowly stood up, my knees trembling slightly. More than 20 pairs of eyes stared at me in amazement, doubt, and mostly disbelief. I could see Aunt Linda's face turn pale, and Mom covered her mouth with her hand. "Hello, Mr. Thompson." I tried to keep my voice calm. "What a coincidence, I had no idea you were my uncle's friend." Uncle Robert looked like someone had stuffed a lemon in his mouth, having to force a smile while looking sour. "Sarah, why didn't you ever tell us about this?" "I did mention it last Christmas, Uncle," I said gently, interrupting him. "I told you I started my own company." "But wasn't that just a tiny studio with only 5 or 6 people?" Cousin Mike blurted out. Director Thompson laughed loudly. "You're joking. StarTech now has over 200 employees with a valuation approaching $100 million. Our group decided to invest precisely because we saw Director Sarah's long-term vision. $100 million. That number exploded like a bomb in the room. I saw several female cousins frantically typing on their phones, probably looking up information about the company. Uncle Robert's face alternated between red and white. He suddenly rushed over and grabbed my hand tightly. Sarah, how could we let you sit here? Director Thompson has come all this way. You must move to the main table immediately. His hand was ice cold and gripping so tightly it almost dragged me to the main table. I glanced back at my napkin still draped over the small chair while little Emma stared wide-eyed in confusion. Uncle, my bag is still over there. Jessica, go get Sarah's bag for her. Uncle Robert didn't even turn around, his voice more enthusiastic than I'd ever heard. I was seated between Uncle Robert and Director Thompson in Mike's former spot. A server immediately brought new dishes and glasses, clearing away Mike's half-finished juice. Throughout this process, I could feel dozens of eyes tracking my every move like stage lights. Sarah, what would you like to drink? Uncle Robert asked attentively, flipping through the wine menu. We have French wine from 1982, or do you prefer white wine? I don't drink, Uncle. I drove here. Call a driver then. Uncle Robert waved dismissively, then called the server to open a bottle of French wine for me. Thompson, you simply must chat with my niece today. She's been outstanding since childhood, always top of her class. I gripped my water glass until my knuckles went white. 10 minutes ago, I was still the spinster aunt who studied too much and had no husband, a burden to the family. Now suddenly, I was the pride and joy. The face turn was so absurd, I almost laughed out loud. Mr. Johnson is truly blessed. Director Thompson raised his glass. Director Sarah is known in the industry for being modest and practical. I had no idea she was your daughter. Uncle Robert beamed as he drained his glass, then launched into tales of my childhood achievements, half of which he probably made up. The relatives began clustering around, competing to add stories. She could recite Tang poetry at 3 years old. When she took the college entrance exam, she ranked in the top 10 statewide. I always said this girl would make it big, you people just didn't believe me. I smiled stiffly like an unwilling actor thrust onto stage. Mom sat nearby looking bewildered. Dad remained silent, occasionally glancing at me with an expression I couldn't read whether pleased or uncomfortable. Sarah, Aunt Linda interjected with a forced smile. Where are you living now, still renting? The question was obviously loaded. In the Johnson family, real estate ownership was the measure of success. I have a place in Riverside Gardens, I replied softly. Riverside Gardens, Jessica exclaimed. That area is all million-dollar mansions. Even the smallest units cost $3 million. Director Thompson chuckled and shook his head. Director Sarah is too modest. If I remember correctly, she bought a 2-story penthouse. Last year, she even invited us over for a visit. The room erupted in more exclamations of amazement. I saw Aunt Linda's face contort further as she quickly asked, So, do you have a boyfriend yet? Mom, why ask that? Mike's mother cut in. Sarah is so accomplished, she probably has suitors lined up around the block. I nearly choked on my water. Just last month at the family gathering, this very cousin had stood before everyone advising me to be less picky. Even divorced men would do as long as I got married. The second half of the party, I became the center of attention. Relatives took turns toasting me and asking about the company, dropping hints about internships for their children. Uncle Robert spent the entire time with his arm around my shoulder, introducing me to Director Thompson and other guests. This is my proudest niece. When the party finally ended, I declined all offers for rides home and walked alone to the parking lot. The cool night breeze brushed across my heated cheeks. Only then did I realize my entire body had been tense the whole time. Sarah, Mom's voice called from behind. I turned to see both parents hurrying toward me. Dad remained quiet, but his eyes looked different. Dad, Mom. I stopped walking. Honey, Mom grabbed my hand. Why didn't you tell the family about something this big? I did tell you, but no one believed me. I smiled bitterly. Last year, when I mentioned the company was raising capital, Dad told me to stop daydreaming and find a stable job instead. Dad cleared his throat softly, looking into the distance. The situation was different then. Is your company really valued at over $100 million now? It's just a valuation, not cash. I shook my head. Besides, the company isn't entirely mine. David is also a shareholder. Dad suddenly spoke up. Thompson is an investor in your company. I looked at him in surprise. Dad, do you know Director Thompson? Old Army buddy, Dad said simply, his eyes distant. Haven't been in touch for years. Mom seemed like she wanted to say something, but finally just sighed. Sarah, from now on, if anything comes up, talk to us about it. What happened with your uncle and aunt today, well, you saw for yourself. I nodded, understanding the implication. Today's gathering had completely reversed my position in the family. But was this kind of respect based on money and status really what I wanted? Back home, I kicked off my heels and collapsed on the sofa. My phone was buzzing nonstop, messages from the family group chat, jumping constantly, dozens of friend requests, countless private messages. Scrolling through, they were all flattery and subtle requests for favors. Even distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly invited me to their children's birthday parties. The most ridiculous was a long message from cousin Jessica. Sarah, I always knew you were the most capable. We were so close as kids. You absolutely must come to my son's birthday party next week. Oh, and my husband's company is having some difficulties lately. I tossed my phone aside and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the city sparkled with lights. I suddenly remembered 5 years ago when I was fired from my old company, standing by a window just like this, crying while vowing to make something of myself. Now I had succeeded, but I felt strangely empty inside, as if I'd won a major battle, but lost something more important in the process. My phone buzzed again, a text from David. Heard you caused quite a stir with the relatives today. Mr. Thompson just called me laughing so hard he could barely speak. Said your uncle's expression was probably unforgettable. I burst out laughing and texted back, I'll tell you all about it at the office tomorrow. I have a feeling this is far from over. I set my phone down and continued staring into the night. From tonight on, everything would be different, but whether for better or worse, who could say? The early morning sun filtered through thin curtains into my bedroom. I squinted, reaching for my phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. The screen showed 28 missed calls and messages flooding in from both the family group chat and private texts. At first, I thought something serious had happened at the company, but opening them brought relief. Uncle Robert had been texting me since 5 a.m., a string of voice messages enthusiastically inviting me to join the planning meeting for next week's family gathering, saying there were important matters that needed my input. The rest were similar cousins, suddenly remembering our close childhood bonds, aunts and uncles competing to praise my academic achievements since birth. I set my phone down and headed to the bathroom. Hot water streaming down my face, last night's scenes replayed in my mind, everyone's stunned expressions when Director Thompson recognized me. Uncle Robert's lightning-fast attitude change, relatives suddenly showering me with attention. Water ran down my cheeks. I couldn't tell if it was from the shower or tears. After getting dressed, I made coffee and opened my laptop. The company inbox had over a dozen unread emails, but I couldn't resist opening a browser and searching Star Tech Sarah Chen. Yet the results were extensive. 30-something CEO leads Star Tech to disrupt the tech industry. From programmer to CEO, Sarah Chen's journey. Star Tech receives strategic investment with nearly $100 million valuation. I scrolled through articles that I usually ignored, now feeling strangely disconnected. I suddenly realized that in my family's eyes, I was someone completely different. The doorbell rang. Looking through the peephole, I saw Mom standing there with 2 bulging grocery bags. Mom, what brings you here? I opened the door, surprised. Brought you some food. Mom walked straight to the kitchen, starting to unpack. I knew your fridge would be empty. Here's the dried bamboo shoots you love most, Mom said deliberately. Mom, I interrupted. Why are you really here? She paused slightly, her back still to me. Your father sent me. He said you didn't look right last night. I leaned against the door frame, my chest tightening. Since childhood, Dad had been the quietest one in the house. I couldn't remember him ever proactively worrying about me. "I'm fine, just not used to it yet," I said. Mom turned around, her eyes full of concern. "Sarah, tell me honestly, is your company really as successful as they said? Why haven't you ever told us?" I sighed and pulled Mom to the living room. The morning sun shone on her hair, and I suddenly noticed how much she'd aged compared to my memories. "I did tell you, but you didn't believe me. Remember last Christmas when I said the company was raising capital?" Aunt Linda laughed right at the dinner table, telling me to stop dreaming and focus on finding a stable job. Mom looked embarrassed. "She's always been like that." I looked directly into Mom's eyes. "If Director Thompson hadn't recognized me yesterday, if I were still just a small company employee, would you have visited me this morning?" Mom seemed to hit a nerve, her eyes reddening. "Why would you say that? We've always cared about you." I handed her a tissue, feeling both guilty and sorry for myself. We sat in silence for a while before Mom began asking about the company. When I told her about David and me starting up in a tiny rental room, she was stunned. "When you said you were working on a project back then, was that what you meant?" "Yes, I wasn't lying, just not telling the whole truth. If I'd failed, I probably would have been homeless." After Mom left, I opened my computer to continue work. David texted that Mr. Thompson had called the company again, joking about whether we needed any special treatment for my relatives. I immediately replied, "Absolutely not. Keep business and personal matters completely separate. Don't bring family issues into the company." That afternoon, I drove to StarTech's headquarters in the high-tech district downtown, occupying a modern 5-story building. As soon as I entered the lobby, the receptionist stood up. "Good afternoon, Director Sarah. Director David asked you to go straight to his office." In the elevator, I straightened my collar in front of the mirror. At home, I was the spinster aunt. Here I was, a powerful CEO. The contrast between these two identities had never been so stark. David opened his door, frowning at his screen. Hearing footsteps, he looked up with his familiar bright smile. Well, well, the family superstar has arrived." I closed the door and slumped into the sofa. "Stop teasing, I'm about to explode." David handed me water and listened as I recounted everything from last night's party to this morning's unexpected visit from Mom. Halfway through, my voice cracked, and I had to pause to take a deep breath. David laughed. "So Sarah has officially become the family's golden child. But this kind of attention sounds very fake." I felt disgusted, sensing an upcoming wave of calculated family sentiment. Uncle Robert had already invited me to what he called a family planning meeting. "What are you going to do?" David asked. "I'm not sure," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to refuse outright, but another part wonders if I should use this opportunity to regain some dignity." David turned his chair to face me, his expression serious. "Sarah, I trust you completely in business. But regarding family matters, I just want to remind you of one thing. Don't let feelings of revenge cloud your judgment. StarTech is at a crucial development stage. Don't let family drama hold you back." His words hit me like cold water. He was right. The company was at a critical juncture, and I couldn't waste energy on family politics. That evening, just as I got home and was considering whether to decline Uncle Robert's invitation outright, my phone rang. It was Dad calling something as rare as snow in Los Angeles. "Sarah," his voice was slightly hoarse, "are you free tomorrow? Come home for dinner." I hesitated before answering. "Sure. Just the three of us," he added, as if reading my thoughts. "Your mother is making your favorite braised fish." After hanging up, I stood silently by the window. A series of unusual events, Dad's dinner invitation, Mom's sudden attention, Uncle Robert's unprecedented enthusiasm. All because they knew I had value. This realization made me feel both bitter and angry. Another message arrived, this time from cousin Jessica. "Sarah heard your company is hiring product managers. My husband is job hunting. He has lots of experience. I'll send you his resume tomorrow." I looked at the message and laughed. There it was, faster than expected, the opening move of exploitative family relationships. I texted back concisely. The company has clear hiring procedures. He can apply through our website and HR will screen according to standards. A few seconds later, the typing indicator appeared, but after 5 full minutes, she only sent one word, "Oh." I set my phone down, opened my laptop, and immediately emailed HR, emphasizing that any candidate I referred or whose name was mentioned needed double the usual scrutiny. Rules were rules, no exceptions for anyone. After sending that, I made tea and reopened last quarter's financial report. The numbers looked great, market share steadily growing. I remembered a year ago when the company was still struggling to survive. Now StarTech had become a formidable competitor in the industry. This should have made me feel proud, but family interference was diluting everything. I closed my eyes, remembering the hardest times when David and I huddled in that 400-square-foot room, eating instant noodles through the night, walking 3 miles home at 2 a.m. to save on transportation costs. Back then, the only family member who occasionally checked on me asked if I'd found a stable job yet. Now, just because of a $100 million figure, I'd suddenly become a goddess. The phone rang again, Uncle Robert. I took a deep breath and answered. "Sarah, I hope I'm not bothering you. Remember to come to the planning meeting next week. I'm thinking of restructuring the family fund and need someone with your caliber to provide input." I tried to stay calm. "Uncle, the company has been very busy lately. I'm not sure I'll be able to attend." "No matter how busy you are, you have to take care of family." Uncle Robert interrupted, his voice harder. "Well, then it's settled. Sunday at 3 p.m. Moonlight Hotel. Your parents will be there too." After hanging up, I suddenly understood tomorrow's dinner with my parents probably wasn't just about eating. I grabbed my car keys and decided to go for a drive. The roar of the engine drowned out the chaotic thoughts in my head. With the windows down, night air rushed against my face, hair flying wildly. But I felt lighter. Maybe I should face that meeting not as a victim, but as someone in control, just like when I negotiated contracts with major partners. If they were starting to respect me because of my value, perhaps I had the right to redefine my position in this extended family. The thought was both exciting and scary. I turned the car around and decided to go home to plan carefully, because in any negotiation, whether business or family, the worst thing was being passive. Sunday at 2:45 p.m. I stood in front of the Moonlight Hotel, adjusting my breathing. Today, I wore a navy blue suit tailored to be serious yet feminine. I usually wore this when negotiating with major partners. Now using it for a family meeting seemed absurd. In the spacious lobby, the receptionist smiled warmly. "Mr. Johnson's party room is this way, please follow me." Opening the door to the peony room, I was slightly taken aback. There were over a dozen people inside, not just my parents, Uncle Robert and his family, but several more distant relatives. Everyone was dressed formally. Uncle Robert even wore a tie, and Cousin Mike was in a suit too, though his tie hung crooked like a noose. "Sarah's here." Uncle Robert stood up enthusiastically, his voice filling the room. "Come here, this seat is saved for you." He pointed to the chair to the right of the head position, the highest seat after the main chair at a family-style banquet. I caught Aunt Linda frowning slightly while Cousin Jessica examined my outfit from head to toe. "Thank you, Uncle." I smiled and walked over, handing gifts to the server, a bottle of good red wine and several boxes of premium pastries. These social niceties were second nature in the business world. Dad sat to the left of the main chair, just nodding slightly at me. Mom discreetly winked, seeming to want to signal something. But before I could understand, Uncle Robert tapped his glass and announced, "Everyone's here. Let's begin. Today's meeting has 2 main items: restructuring the family fund and preparing for Grandpa's 90th birthday next month." I raised an eyebrow slightly. The so-called family fund was actually an account controlled by Uncle Robert, with each household contributing a little used for organizing holidays and medical expenses for the grandparents. For years, sometimes no one even asked about it, and I'd never been invited to a formal meeting in a hotel like this. Uncle Robert glanced around and finally looked at me. Since Sarah has achieved such remarkable success, I propose making her the financial supervisor of the family fund. What does everyone think? A few scattered good ideas rang out. I caught several relatives exchanging glances. The motives behind this were obvious. I kept my voice gentle but firm. I'm very honored, but the company has been quite busy lately. I'm afraid I don't have enough time to participate in managing the family fund. However, as a member, I'm still willing to contribute as I have every year. Uncle Robert's smile faltered momentarily, then became even more enthusiastic. Sarah, you're too modest. Now that you're CEO of a major company with extensive management experience, the family needs someone like you to lead us. That's right. Aunt Linda chimed in, her smile forced. Now that Sarah is successful, don't forget your family. Is your company still hiring? Mike is tired of government work. Maybe he could join your company. I had anticipated this situation. I glanced over and saw Mike immediately sit up straight, his eyes full of expectation. The company is indeed expanding. I set down my water glass, but all hiring goes through strict procedures via HR. If Mike is interested, he can submit his resume on our website. As long as he meets the requirements, he'll be considered. My goodness, family members still have to go through procedures. Aunt Linda's voice rose almost sharp. You're the CEO, one word from you would be enough. The atmosphere in the room suddenly tensed. Several uncles and aunts were pretending to drink tea but had their ears perked up. Cousin Jessica pouted. Under the table, Mom gently kicked my foot. I maintained my professional smile. Precisely because we're family, we need to follow the rules even more strictly. StarTech has over 200 employees. If I'm the first to break protocol, how can anyone respect the rules afterward? Sarah is right. Dad unexpectedly spoke up. Business is business, personal is personal. If someone has ability, they should apply like everyone else. Uncle Robert's face darkened, but for the sake of appearances, he had to nod. The conversation temporarily shifted to planning Grandpa's birthday. Then Uncle Robert dropped another bomb. For Grandpa's birthday this time, I want to make it grand. The budget is tentatively set at $300,000 split evenly among the families. Sarah, now that you have the means, you'll probably cover the largest portion. $300,000. I almost laughed. Previously, our family's New Year celebrations never exceeded $75,000. Last year's birthday for Grandpa was just a simple dinner at home. This time was clearly targeting me. I spoke before Uncle Robert could continue. I think the scale of the party should be based on Grandpa's wishes. When I visited him last week, he said he doesn't like elaborate affairs. He just wants to eat simply with family. That's just being polite. Aunt Linda quickly interjected, her voice sharp as a knife. A 90th birthday, celebrated simply. What would that look like, Sarah, now that you have money? Surely you have some filial piety. I gripped my water glass, feeling my blood pressure spike. This was their game, using filial piety and family ties to pressure me into spending money. Money isn't the issue. I set down my glass, my voice clear and decisive. The issue is whether it's worthwhile. If Grandpa truly wants a big celebration, I'm willing to pay for everything. But if it's just for a few people to show off, I won't spend a penny. The room fell dead silent. Uncle Robert's face went pale. Aunt Linda looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Cousin Jessica audibly gasped while several younger cousins stared in shock. Sarah, Mom whispered sternly, how can you talk to elders like that? I'm just being honest, I replied, then turned to Uncle Robert. How about I ask Grandpa tomorrow about his real wishes and we'll plan according to what he actually wants. I can handle the expenses. This reverse strategy left Uncle Robert speechless, and he reluctantly nodded. From then on, the meeting grew cold. Uncle Robert quickly wrapped things up and everyone dispersed. At the hotel exit, Dad unexpectedly said, "Let me drive you home." Mom quickly made an excuse about shopping and went off separately. Sitting in the familiar old Volkswagen, the smell of worn seats and cigarettes filled my nose, Dad's familiar scent. He'd been driving this car for over a decade, refusing to replace it, despite its age. "You were a bit harsh today," Dad said while starting the car, his voice not reproachful. "I'm tired of being taken advantage of," I said, looking out the window. After a moment, Dad asked, "Is the company really too busy to supervise the family fund?" I turned to look at him. "Actually, it's not really a fund at all, just Uncle Robert's personal account. Our family has contributed the most for over 10 years, but when Grandma was hospitalized and we asked for support, we were politely refused in every way. Do you remember?" Dad gripped the steering wheel tighter without responding. "That year when Grandma was in the hospital, Uncle Robert said the fund was insufficient, so he only gave $750, but later he bought his son a new car." At the red light, Dad suddenly said, "Whatever you decide, I support you. But don't cut ties completely. Family is still your foundation after all." I looked at Dad in surprise. This was the first time he'd ever said something so emotional. "I don't plan to break away completely." I softened my voice. "I just want to establish a new way of treating each other with respect, not one-sided demands." Dad nodded slightly without saying more. As we neared home, he suddenly asked, "If Mike really applies to your company, does he have a chance?" I sighed. Honestly, Mike went to a mediocre school, has average qualifications, is lazy at work, and has virtually no skills. At StarTech, we value capability and potential. If he's willing to change, there might be hope. Dad unexpectedly laughed. "You're tougher than me. I wish I'd been that decisive back then." He didn't continue, but I understood. Perhaps Dad had also been treated unfairly in this very family, but he chose to endure it. When I got home, I opened the family group chat, which had exploded. Cousin Jessica had sent a long string of passive-aggressive messages. Some people, once they have money, look down on their relatives, won't even help a little bit, acting all high and mighty, thinking they're God. I heard the company is so big but never seen them teach their employees about family values. Several male cousins liked and supported her comments while my parents remained unusually silent. I was about to close the chat when a private message popped up from Mike. "Don't mind those people. You were right today. I know I'm not qualified for your company yet, but where should I start to change?" I replied cautiously. "Study product management seriously. I'll send you some materials." Mike responded, "Thank you. I want to change this time. My girlfriend left me because she said I have no ambition." I decided to give him a chance. 3 days later, StarTech faced a major crisis. A smear campaign emerged online questioning our product quality with fabricated test reports. Worse, 2 key engineers had been poached by our competitor TechVision, taking crucial technology with them. But during this crisis, something unexpected happened. Mr. Thompson publicly supported us, providing legal assistance. Dad, whom I thought never cared about my work, had quietly contacted his old Army buddy Thompson to help me. More surprisingly, Mike spent all night researching our technology and defending us online. When I saw his genuine effort, I realized not everyone in the family was opportunistic. When Grandpa suddenly collapsed and was hospitalized with a brain tumor, the family gathered again. This time, Uncle Robert wanted to use his doctor friend while I brought in specialists from the medical center. Another power struggle ensued, but Dad unexpectedly supported my decision. "Let Sarah decide," he said firmly. It was the first time he'd ever stood up for me in family matters. The surgery was successful. During Grandpa's recovery, he told me something that changed everything. "You remind me of myself when I was young. I once tried to start my own business but failed. I've always regretted giving up too easily." At Grandpa's recovery celebration, Uncle Robert tried once more to make me the family fund manager. This time, I had a different proposal. I declined the fund position, but I'd like to establish a family education fund, I announced, to support any family member, male or female, who wants to pursue education or start a business. Merit-based, not gender-based. Grandpa smiled proudly. That's exactly what this family needs. 6 months later, Mike passed our hiring process on his own merit. The education fund had helped 3 female cousins pursue college degrees. Jessica's attempts to exploit family connections had failed, and she grudgingly apologized. Most importantly, I learned that success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about staying true to your principles while keeping your heart open to genuine change. Standing in my office looking out at the city lights, I finally understood what Grandpa meant years ago. Be like a star, shine your light whether people see it or not. The light doesn't have to be blinding to be meaningful. Sometimes it just needs to illuminate your own path and warm the hearts of those you truly love.